All the little things that are necessary to make it work.
Delay. Fine.
And back to, hi, Regina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good, good. Family, everybody doing well?
Thank God, we're all okay.
I saw your son. He's growing very rapidly.
It is crazy.
Yeah, I saw him in a Saturday, and he went to the front to see you, and he's practically as tall as you already.
Not quite, but he is almost as tall as my wife.
He's getting there.
Yeah, growing too fast. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, he should, and thank God he is, but it's just scary of watching the kids grow.
Yeah, they grow too fast. They do. They do.
All right, just give it another minute or two. Make sure the people who want to come have a chance to come.
How
How are you doing, Aaron? I see you're on.
Doing good, Rabbi. How about you?
I'm fine. Doing fine. Looking forward to 2021.
It's gonna be my best year. 2021 is gonna be my best year.
That's the right attitude.
Yes.
Every year has that chance.
Yes.
Yes.
I hope everything goes back to normal, that we can go to service.
Oh, that definitely. But I hope things get better than normal.
Yes. That if I have to take the baby, at least there's a room in there to put her in, or we can stay there with her.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yes. Hopefully. Yep.
Hey, Rabbi.
Yes.
On Friday, we were talking about the that you shouldn't form those. We'll use the word intersectionality again, not the political use, but based on similarities.
Well, no, I was saying that we shouldn't think that the only reason that we and in the topic you brought up and Christians can work together is because we share a Judeo-Christian root. I mean, just like I said, I don't think that's a healthy term, and I don't think it's a healthy basis for a good relationship. Instead, we should work with them because working with other people in our country and our world is good. And where we share common interests, we share, and where we don't, we don't. And they should respect us, and we should respect them, not because of some belief of how much overlap there is in our origin, especially given that in our theology, not our practice, but in our theology, there are some very stark differences.
Right. I thought it wasn't so much based on similarities, but I thought it was based on acceptable behavior, because when they didn't have those I guess those terms where they tried to work together a lot, it turned out to be really bad.
Well, yeah, the idea that there is an acceptable set of behavior that the Christians get to set and we need to conform to is very problematic. It's not that the Jews were resisting giving them freedom and equality or allowing them to have positions of authority in a country. It was always the other direction. And so saying that we could have those positions because we were similar enough to them is very dangerous, because they can change that bar whenever they feel like it. And additionally, it also means that they leave open the idea that others that aren't similar enough don't deserve the rights and freedoms that this country offers. And I'm sorry, there's no litmus test. If you are a citizen, you are protected.
But then doesn't having that stuff help you prevent them from, at least give you a communication to prevent them from changing that bar?
I'm not saying that we don't work together with people. I think that, I'm not sure if you, because from our conversation on Friday and continuing, it seems that you think I'm proposing some sort of dichotomy, that either we accept that we are accepted because they tolerate our behavior as being close enough to theirs, or we run away from them screaming and never work together with them at all. And those are not the only options.
Right.
Right. The middle road is to say, we respect them for being them and different, and they respect us for being us and different. And we work together every place we can, and we disagree every place we must. But even in our disagreements, we respect them. And if we're able to get far enough into tonight's study, at the very end of chapter 1 of Yevamot, we are going to talk about how that idea of tolerance and respect for each other works in the Jewish setting, in the very famous passage about Hillel and Shammai. But,
that's actually why I brought it up today. We went over that again, and that was in Ediot too, I think. Yes,
it's a very famous section and one that gets a lot of emphasis in Jewish study, because given as passionate and as aggressive as Jewish debate and study can be, it's very important to continually remind people that agreeing with the other person's position is not the foundation for the relationship. The relationship comes first, and disagreements don't ruin that relationship. Disagreements are simply a feature of that relationship. And we don't need to be uniform in everything in order to still respect and work together.
Then how come the Orthodox gets attacked so much by other branches of Judaism?
Mainly because other branches of Judaism don't like being told that they're illegitimate, wrong, and sinful. So it's not a question of us attacking them, it's us defending ourselves. But I suppose if I punch someone and they punch back, I'm probably going to complain if they think that I think I have the right to hit them. But yeah, really, it's a very unfortunate case of projection. The Orthodox were founded not as individuals, but the philosophy was founded as a reactionary movement to the Reform movement to delegitimize what it was doing. And when people push back against that, they are accused of being aggressive.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that's really flipping the order of events.
Yeah, it seems like every time I say something good about I said something a couple weeks ago to a rabbi about the Orthodox movement, and it seemed like he pushed back a little bit in an email.
I don't know, but it could very well be, and there might have been reasons given the context of the email.
Oh.
But we can continue that privately. Let's go ahead and get to work on complicated families. So we're going to pick up with just a quick refresher on the section from Deuteronomy. We're going to stop into Sefer HaChinuch again to look at Chalitza, the release ceremony, and then we are going to jump into the Mishnah proper. So that's our plan. 1, 2, 3. Let's see if we can do it. So Deuteronomy 25:5 is the area that is the primary foundation for the laws on Yibum, Levirate marriage. So let's just do a quick review. When brothers dwell together and one of them dies and leaves no son, or as we saw last week, any child, including grandchildren, the wife of the deceased shall not be married to a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother shall unite with her. He shall take her as his wife and perform the levir's duty, meaning he will take her as a wife and sire a child, have a child. The first son that she bears shall be accounted to the dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out in Israel. That first child becomes his heir. But if the man does not want to marry his brother's widow shall appear before the elders in the gate, the public place for such declarations, and declare, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name in Israel for his brother. He will not perform the duty of a levir. The elders of his town shall then summon him and talk to him. If he insists, saying, I do not want to marry her, he completely refuses, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, pull the sandal off his foot, spit in his face, and make this declaration. Thus shall be done to the man who will not build up his brother's house. And he shall go in Israel by the name of the family of the unsandaled one. He becomes labeled by this term for having refused to do this duty to his deceased brother. Now, we're going to talk about the release ceremony, the sandal and the spitting in just a second. But I just want to make sure that everyone is up to speed on the general pattern here. A man dies, has no children. His wife is automatically engaged to a brother. If he refuses, she then does a ceremony and is released. If he agrees, they are married, they have a child, and that child is considered to be the child of the deceased. That is the nutshell version of the Levirate marriage, or what we call Yibum in Hebrew. Okay, so let's talk about that release, because we're going to see not just who does this and who doesn't, but we're also going to see how the release happens, and not just the details of the release, but one of the things we're going to come across is that this release ceremony, what we call chalitza, the sandal ceremony, is going to become the backup plan. If ever there is doubt, if ever there are problems about whether you can or can't do the levirate marriage, we fall back on doing the release ceremony. And that means that sometimes this ceremony is going to be done by obligation. Right? It's not going to be done because the brother was being a bad brother. Sometimes it will be the best solution to the circumstances. So we shouldn't look at it as always being 100% negative. Now, I mentioned last week as well, in the modern times and for quite some time, varying in different communities, people do not do the levirate marriage at all. And so the default position for all cases is to do the ceremony of release, what's called chalitza again. You'll get used to the terms as we go. Joseph, I see your hand.
Yes, Rabbi. Is this the sandal ceremony is what was done in, or is described in the book of Ruth?
Yes, exactly. That is a sort of a narrative version of this activity. All right. So, like I said, let's do a quick summary of the halacha, the laws on this, and we're going to Sefer HaChinuch, great summarizer of mitzvot. Not 100% that everything agreed by every authority, but it is by and large very widely accepted for its blanket summaries. So the commandment of chalitza, of release. So we have been commanded that the levirate wife removes the shoe of a levirate husband from upon his foot when he does not want to marry her as a wife. And about this it is stated, and she removes the shoe from upon his foot, as we just read. It is from the roots of the commandment that it is, since this woman is fitting to serve this man instead of his brother, and whether or not she is fitting is going to be the first topic of our Mishnah when we get there. But since she is fitting to serve this man instead of his brother, from the reason that we gave above regarding the commandment of levirate marriage, and yet he does not want her. Hence the Torah commanded that she perform this act of service of removing the shoe for him, which is the service of a slave, acquired publicly in front of the court, to show all that she was completely acquired to him, and that it would have been fitting for him to perform levirate marriage with her, for the reason mentioned in the previous commandment. So he is arguing that the shoe removal system is a symbol of the fact that she was willing, right? She was able, she was willing, she is serving him as though she were the most permissible and obedient person who would be ready to do the duty for her deceased husband. So the removal of the shoe was apparently a cultural symbol of that service that she was offering. And because he does not want to do what is incumbent upon him, to establish a name for his brother, she goes out from under his hand, meaning she is no longer under his authority. She moves away from him and spits in front of him to make known that she is completely separated from him and not subjugated to him any longer. And we'll talk about the spitting in more detail, of course, in the Mishnah, such that she should give him honor in any matter, right? The spitting is a way of saying, I had been willing to serve you in the most faithful way possible, the shoe removal, but now I'm not even going to care that you're standing there when I spit, which shows that I'm treating you in the most casual and indifferent manner possible, like you are totally unimportant to me. So it is doing a 180 from the respect she showed with the shoe to the absolute zero respect that she is showing by spitting. Rather, he is considered like a stranger that is not concerned about spitting in front of him. And from now on, she goes and can marry anyone she wants. All right, so that's the broad outline. And then he's going to give us a little bit more detail on how the ceremony works and why it works, or why it's done. So from paragraph 3 in this version, from the laws of the commandment is that which they, may their memory be blessed, said, when brothers dwell together, to exclude the wife of a brother who was not in this world, meaning that then she does not have an obligation of levirate marriage and not of release. For example, if this brother was born after his brother that was married and had no children died. So if you were married to a man, he dies, and then later his mother gives birth to another brother, that doesn't obligate you to the now newly born brother. The brother had to exist in this world at the time that your husband died for the bond to be created. Brothers together that are together in inheritance, to exclude brothers born only from the mother, who are not obligated in levirate marriage and release. So if there are two brothers and they are brothers from the same mother, but not from the same father, since inheritance follows the father's line, they are not under the same together idea of inheritance, and therefore they do not need to do levirate marriage for each other. Right? Two brothers from the same mother but different fathers do not do this for each other. But the opposite, two brothers from one father but two mothers, they must do the levirate marriage for each other. Everyone following that logic? All right.
Can you repeat it again, please?
What's that?
Can you repeat it again, please?
Yes. So this is where I wish I had like a big chart of family, of possible families, but there's so many complicated versions that I think it would be impossible. All right, so imagine you have two brothers that are half brothers, right? Two half brothers. There are two different versions of being a half brother. You can be a half brother because you share a mother, and you can be a half brother because you share a father. If you're a half brother who share the mother, you do not do levirate marriage because you are not brothers together in inheritance, because you don't inherit from your mother. On the other hand, if you are two brothers, half brothers who share a father, paternal half brothers, then you are together in the line of inheritance, and therefore you do levirate marriage for each other. And of course, if you are full brothers, same mother, same father, then you do it as well. Does that clear it up? Okay.
Yeah, clear.
And has no son, right? Ein son, look into him, right? Ein. What this means is to say that if the brother did have a son or daughter from any place, or a son of a son, or the son of a daughter, or the daughter of a daughter, or anyone that came from his thigh, which is a euphemism for the male body, there is no commandment of levirate marriage or release from there, for the reason that we mentioned concerning the commandment of levirate marriage in the last week's discussion. So as long as there are any offsprings of any type anywhere, then we don't do the levirate marriage. You have to really look to find them all, but if they exist, then we don't do this. Paragraph 4. And this is the order of the release, chalitza, as we have learned it from our rabbis, may their memory be blessed, in the Gemara. And so it is practiced today. 3 men are chosen that know how to read what they are obligated to read to the levirate husband and the levirate wife, and they are called judges. And they add to them 2 others so that there be 5 to publicize the matter, or even up to 10. And such is the practice of the people. And the 5 judges are careful that they not be related to each other, or to the levirate husband, or to the levirate wife. In practice for Jewish law, when you are serving as a judge or even as a witness, you don't want to be related to the people that you are giving the testimony about or that you are judging. You want to make sure that you are separated from the people. And then they say to each other, let us go to place X and set a place for the release of Y. And since so did Rava say, the judges have to set a place, meaning this is going to be an established activity with a known location for it to be done. And they all go there, and the judges sit, and the Levirate husband and the Levirate wife stand, as if in judgment, wherein the judges are sitting and the litigants are standing. So they are standing as though this was a real court case. And there is no impediment in this, such that if they did it with the Levirate husband and the Levirate wife sitting, the release is not disqualified by this. So even if they did it not the ideal way, it still counts. Let me scroll down. And afterwards, the judges ask the Levirate husband if he is 13 years and a day old and has produced 2 hairs, meaning from the body as the man matures. And they also find out clearly that the woman being released is the wife of the dead brother of this releaser. As Rava said, we do not release if we do not recognize, that we have to be sure of all the identities. And when they know all of this with certainty and the matter is clear to them, they also ask the woman if she ate that day. And if she ate, we do not release on that day, as we are concerned lest she ate things that bring her to spitting, and we need the spitting to be from her. As Rava said, if she ate garlic and spit, or if she ate a clod of dirt and spit, it is nothing. And she spits, we need it to be from her, and this is not. Nonetheless, this thing does not impede it, and if they released her in this way, the release is fit, ex post facto, after the fact, as behold, the spitting from her does not impede it. So they want to make sure and that the spitting really is her choice, that it's not just she's getting rid of something in her mouth, that she really is doing this as a sign of fulfilling this ceremony. But even if we're not 100% sure, it's still enough and the release counts. Again, we'll go through a lot of this in more detail in the Mishnah. And afterwards, if the courts see that the Levirate husband and the Levirate wife are legally fit for one another, they start with the Levirate husband and say to him, if it is pleasing to you to perform the Levirate marriage, perform it. And if not, release her. And if he wants to release her, he takes a hard sandal that is all leather, or a soft sandal, since all of the people have already become accustomed to it. And he should be careful that it all be stitched with leather, and that it not be exceedingly large, but rather medium, so that he can walk with it, and also not too small, but rather it should at least cover the majority of his foot. And from the outset, he should release her with his shoe, and it should be the right shoe, meaning the shoe for the right foot. However, ex post facto, after the fact, this does not impede it. If he did it with the other one, it's still okay. And there should be 2 straps of leather or of hair sewn into the shoe, and they should be big enough to wrap it around his foot, meaning like laces. And he should put the shoe on his right foot, and he should be otherwise barefoot and not with stockings, so that it is not upon that which is upon. Meaning you don't want to have a shoe and then the sandal also, because then the sandal isn't on him, the sandal is on his shoe. So you want it to be on him. And if he released her with the left foot, his release is disqualified. And he should be careful that the shoe not be so tall that it goes over his knee, and also that it is upon that which is upon, because then it's not really a foot, it's leg. But if it is below the knee, it is certainly not upon that which is upon. And afterwards, he ties the strap around his foot, and he ties 2 knots. And the Levirate husband stands next to the wall or next to a post and presses his foot onto the ground. As Amimar says, that one that releases needs to press his foot.
So 1 second. So she needs to take the shoes from him, the one that refused, and she needs to throw the shoes to him or not?
Hold on, we're getting there. We're getting there.
But for the moment, he's only taking the shoes out.
At the moment, the shoe is just on his foot.
Okay.
And he's standing on the shoe. Right? The shoe isn't like floating. He is pushing it down on the ground.
Okay.
And afterwards, the court has the Levirate wife recite in the Holy Tongue, meaning in Hebrew, which is what we talked about in Sota in the final chapter. From my Levirate husband, meaning from the portion that begins, my Levirate husband refuses until he does not want to perform Levirate marriage with me, which we saw in Deuteronomy 25. And she should be careful not to pause between does not and want, but rather reads these 2 words at one time without a pause, so it does not sound like wants to perform Levirate marriage with me. And they have the Levirate husband recite, I do not want to marry her. So There is a very strict script to make sure it is following exactly how the Torah outlines it. And afterwards, now that all the talking has been done, the Levirate wife comes next to the Levirate husband, and she approaches him and unties the straps without any assistance from the Levirate husband at all. And then she removes the shoe from his foot. And also in this, the Levirate husband does not assist at all. Rather, she stands next to the wall and he stands next to the wall and presses his foot properly onto the ground. And it is all done standing, as we have said. And according to our Gemara, she removes the shoe with either her left or her right hand, as we do not find an exactitude about this in the Gemara, in the Talmud. But in the Yerushalmi, they said that she needs to remove it with her right hand. Hence, the woman should concern herself about this, and from the outset, remove it with the right hand. And if she has no hands, meaning she is a double amputee, she should remove it with her teeth, even from the outset, as it explained in the Gemara.
What's the problem if the person helped her removing the shoes?
So
because he agreed to the ceremony.
Right, but this is to show that she is positioning herself that she is willing to serve him, and therefore it is her job to remove it. That is what she is trying to show. But he still refuses her, and so she spits. So if he were helping her, it would mean maybe she wouldn't be willing to do it unless he helped. But this is showing she is 100% willing, and it's his choice not to. And afterwards, and she spits in his face. Spit, they interpret that the judges can see. As Rava says, the judges need to see the spit that came out of the mouth of the Levirate wife. And we need that the spit reaches in front of the face of the Levirate husband, as we say in the Gemara. So notice that what's being talked about here is not spitting in his face, in the sense like it's on him. It is spitting in front of him, in front of his face, so that it is in the area in front of his eyes. So very different feeling than someone spitting on you, than someone spitting in front of you.
So that's why it's important that she will not eat anything before.
That's another reason, perhaps, but yeah. It is such that if he is tall and she is a midget, if she is a short person, and the wind caught it upwards, we call this in his face. But if she is tall and he is a little person and the wind caught it upwards, it does not help at all, as we need that it reaches in front of the face. However, after it reaches in front of his face, if the wind caught it, we have no concern about it. So it does need to reach the area in front of him. So if it goes over him, it's a problem. But as long as it's in front of him, then we're okay.
And we will talk how close must be close to him.
In front of him, yes.
No, but that's part of the Mishnah. If he's how many redhead or something closer, if he's 1 feet or 2 feet.
I don't remember that being a major concern, but it does need to be near him. Okay. 9. And afterwards, the court has her recite in the holy tongue from "Thus shall be done to the man" until the unshod one, or unshoed one rather. And afterwards, all who are standing there answer the unshoed one, 3 times. As it is taught, Rabbi Yehuda said, one time we were sitting in front of Rabbi Tarfon, and a Levirate wife came to remove the shoe. He said to us all of you answer the unshoed one 3 times in the holy tongue. And they said in the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda said that Rav said, the commandment of release is that she reads and he reads, she removes and spits and reads. What novelty do we infer? It's already in our Mishnah. We infer that this is only a mitzvah, an ideal fulfillment of the commandment. And if the order is reversed, we have no concern about it. And so is the law. So they are a little bit more flexible on how this is performed. And after she removes the shoe, in court, as is fitting, the court writes her a contract of release so that she can get married to anyone in the marketplace with it, meaning that she is free to marry anyone else. And Rabbi El-Flasi, may his memory be blessed, wrote in his laws, and this is his language, and so the writing of release contract has to be lined with lines and not written with inferior ink, and he needs to write in the place of the sitting of three is one, and the three sign it, and that is only if they know how to read it to others. So this is trying to make it a very official legal document and something that can't be used as a forgery.
Rabbi, you went so fast. I didn't have enough time to read carefully. So she need to after she take out the shoes, okay, his shoe. That is the right or the leg or left leg.
The right foot is the foot that should be used.
But after that, she returned the shoe to him, right?
Well, I mean, the shoe is really symbolic. It's not necessarily his shoe. It's just a shoe used for the ceremony. But yes, she doesn't keep the shoe.
Or throw it away.
No.
You see, you can see that those ladies, they are not Latinas.
Well, again, one of the things that's really important to remember is that the rabbis of the Mishnah and the Talmud don't consider this to always be the wrong thing to do, right? Chalitza is sometimes the best option for the family. So they don't want to make it that he is always disgraced. Yes, there is a hint from the Torah that oftentimes people who should do the Levirate marriage refuse, and thus there is some stigma. But sometimes this really is the right solution. And so they are trying to balance it so that it is not completely offensive to somebody whom the rabbis are saying should do the release.
So if the person released, go immediately to the next one in the order of hierarchy.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Oh, sorry. After the ceremony, okay,
Yeah.
she's released from that specific person, not to marry anyone. She can continue, she needs to marry maybe the next one in the line, in the family, correct?
No. We see that that she will go through all of the brothers to find if one of them will do Yibum, and if none of them do it, then you do Chalitza.
Oh, okay. So I thought that you do Chalitza for each of them if they refuse to marry her.
I can double check. That's not the way I remember it.
No, maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
Okay, so next paragraph, we get the contract form. I'm just going to sort of zip through this because it's just the document that she gets that is kind of like a get, kind of like a divorce document. And this is the contract of release. On X day, that is this number in the month X, which is this number year from the creation of the world, according to the number that is accustomed in the place X. We, the judges, some of which are signed below, are in the sitting of three as one in the court. And X, the daughter of Y, came down in front of us, the widow of Z, and she brought close in front of us a man whose name was B, the son of C. And so did she say to us, this B, the son of C, the brother born from the father of Z, the son of C, who married me and died and left our rabbis and all of Israel alive, but he did not leave a son or daughter that would inherit and would be related and bring out his name in Israel. And this B, his brother, is fitting to perform Levirate marriage with me. And now our rabbis, my judges, say to him, if you want to perform Levirate marriage with me, perform it. And if not, let him extend his right foot in front of you, and I will untie the shoe upon his foot and spit in his face. And we have ascertained it, that this B is the brother of Z, born from the father. And we said of him, if you want to perform Levirate marriage with her, perform it. And if not, extend your right foot to her in front of me, and she will untie your shoe from upon your foot and spit in your face. And he answered and said, I do not want to perform Levirate marriage with her. Immediately I had this X recite, my Levirate husband refuses to establish a name in Israel for his brother. He does not want to perform Levirate marriage with me. And also with this B, I had him recite, I do not want to marry her. And he extended his right foot, and she untied his shoe from upon his foot and spat in his face, spit that was visible from us, to us, from her to the ground. And again, I made this X recite, thus shall be done to the man who will not build up his brother's house. And again, I had her recite, and he shall go in Israel by the name of the family of the unshoed one. And we, the judges, all who were sitting here, answered after her, the ensued one 3 times. And once this event happened in front of us, we have permitted this ex to go and marry any man she wants, and no one should protest against her for that, from this day and forever. And this ex requested this contract of release, and I have written it and signed it and given it to her own, like the law of Moshe and Israel, and 3 judges sign on it. And the rest of the details are in the Talmud.
Rabbi, you know what I was thinking? Because I'm still was catch with my previous question. When Ruth Boaz discovered that someone else was before him,
yes,
in order, and the chalitza was that person. That person is the chalitza, but Boaz was part of the family. So if she did a chalitza with him before marrying with Boaz, if they're the same family, means they need to do a chalitza with each of the person that refused to marry.
So the issue,
if I remember correctly, the story of Ruth.
Right. So there is an issue with the story of Ruth not fitting the pattern of Yevamot, of Levirate marriage. The most important thing is that Boaz and the other Ploni, a named person, are not her dead brother's brother or dead husband brother. They are other more distant relatives. Mm-hmm. And so there, what really seems to be happening is more a question of redeeming the land rather than specifically the idea of Levirate marriage for her dead husband. So it has a lot of similar feel to it, but it doesn't follow exactly the laws of Levirate marriage.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little bit more complicated, and actually the commentaries they work very hard to try and make it fit halakha, because it doesn't seem to be a perfect fit. On the one hand, it seems like when Ruth first got married to her husband, she wasn't Jewish, but converted later, which means that her first marriage would not have been a binding marriage. Yeah. Secondly, we have people that are not brothers performing the ceremony. Third, the issue seems to be much more about the land being redeemed than Ruth in particular. And then of course, Ruth is being added as part of the redemption of the land, as being like, if you redeem the land, you also have to get her, which also seems very unusual. So yeah, it's not a perfect fit for the halakha, neither the Torah directly nor how the rabbis understood it.
Could be a later development of the halakha.
It could be. It can also be one of the explanations says that this is during the time of the judges. And the thing that we know about the time of the judges is everyone did what was right in their own eye, meaning that this may not have been the normal way of doing halakha, but people were doing it anyway because they often bent the rules.
Okay.
But it's one of the reasons why we don't derive fully halakha, Jewish law, from things outside of the Torah. We always have to start and finish in the Torah, and sometimes we'll use supporting verses from the rest of the Tanakh, but it has to always match up to everything in the Torah. All right, so with that lightning review of the different ideas of both release as well as Levirate marriage, let's get to the actual Mishnah. And the first one is a doozy. Okay, this is if you don't know doozy, it's a great English word, meaning this is a difficult one. This is a big one. It's not long. It's not long, but it's complicated. In fact, it's so complicated that I'm going to be borrowing some commentary over here about some of these different relationships. But hopefully our little detour through Sefer HaChinuch will help. So, once again, quick reminder, the Mishnah jumps in thinking you already know this, and these are your study notes to help you review. It's not trying to teach you like your American history textbook. This is trying to just be a collection of notes that you can review to remind yourself of what you've learned. So it's going to start off chapter 1, Mishnah 1, with a topic that seems to already think you understand a lot more than you probably understand. That's one of the main reasons why we did our detour through the other book. Okay. 15, meaning categories of women, exempt their rival wives, and the rival wives of their rival wives, and so on ad infinitum from chalitza and from yibum. Okay. What this is saying is that there are certain family relationships where two brothers are brothers, and one of them might be married to a woman who cannot become the wife of the other brother. And we're going to see all the different possibilities of that. Right? So they're both married to, or rather, one's married to a wife that couldn't marry the living brother after his death. When that happens, she is released, and so are any of the other wives that were married to the dead husband. Right? When one is released, all of them are released. So that, and released completely. They don't have to do any ceremony or do any act of yibum. The rival wives of rival wives and the ad infinitum is trying to say that if you had these two brothers, and then there was also a third brother or a fourth brother or a fifth brother, and sequentially, the wives were married to different ones, and then there was a death, as we'll see, that as long as they were ever in the relationship that would have been prohibited, then even if it is first or second or third degree removed, they and everyone else is off the hook and nothing needs to be done. Levirate marriage and chalitza, nothing happens. We're going to look at some examples in the commentary because he gives names, which makes it a lot easier to keep straight. But first, I just want to read the general categories. Okay, and these are the 15 categories that cancel all of levirate marriage if one of the brothers is married to such a woman. His daughter, the daughter of his daughter, and the daughter of his son, and the daughter of his wife, and the daughter of her son, and the daughter of her daughter. All right, so that's 7 people right there. So what are we talking about here? Look over the commentary on the right. This is, again, from the conservative yeshiva's Mishnah program. His daughter, Reuven and Shimon, right? They're brothers. Shimon marries Reuven's daughter. And yes, marrying your niece is technically allowed under Jewish law. We don't do that nowadays, but it is technically allowed. So you have 2 brothers, and one of them marries his brother's daughter, marries the niece, and another woman, right? So he's got 2 wives, one wife that's from just whoever, and the other that is his niece. If Shimon dies, Reuben cannot perform yibum with his daughter, right? Reuben can't marry Reuben's own daughter because that's absolutely forbidden. Hence, she, the daughter, and her rival wives, any other wives that were married to Shimon, are exempt from yibum or chalitza. Right, so that is our basic pattern here.
Yeah, but what if there's another brother that can marry her?
So that's what we're going to get to eventually.
Because you release all the whole other woman, but not what happened with the obligation. I don't know if you read what is the order of priorities, who marry whom.
Well, you start with the older brother when there's more than one that you have to ask. But we're gonna go through the list of what happens if there's a third brother a little bit further on.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure everybody understands that for this Mishnah 1, the basic pattern is that Shimon, the dead brother, is married to somebody that Reuben is absolutely prohibited from marrying, is not allowed to marry at all. Shimon was, but Reuben can't. And that can happen. Now, this right now is sort of like just a general version of having to do with descendants of Reuben, but there are going to be other conflicts that can happen. That's the rest of the list. But remember, blended families are not new, right? The nuclear family of, two brothers from the same parents, and the two brothers have only ever been married once, and they have kids, and that's it. Families have been complicated forever. So stepbrothers and half-brothers and your step aunt and your father's second wife and the children from your father's second, all of this has been going on for thousands of years. In fact, in many ways, this all used to happen more. Not because people were like constantly getting divorced and remarrying random people, but one, you had smaller towns, and so the choices of partners were limited. Two, people got married younger and had children younger, which means the age difference between aunts and children, or even grandparents and children, were not always so huge, so that you would think they would never get married. For example, if the first person gets married at 18, and then they have their child at 18, right, they can be a grandparent at 36. And if they were married or had children younger, it could be even younger that they become a grandparent. And the biggest issue was people would die. And living on your own was not really economically feasible. You needed the cooperation of a family to survive for most of our history. So most people who would lose a spouse would remarry. It wasn't that they didn't love the person they died. It wasn't that they forgot them. They had to. And remarriage was the natural activity. And that meant having half brothers and having step brothers and sisters was normal. It's not something new in our world. So you'll need to have that in mind when we get through some of the more complicated issues.
So if I understood correctly, there was not love there. You don't marry with someone that you love. That's very modern approach.
Yes and no. This was something actually I think that, Fiddler on the Roof, for all of its historical and Jewish inaccuracies, kind of got right, which was you married because you needed to marry, and you married because you expected the person to be a partner in life that would make sure that you and they would survive. But you also did expect to develop affection, right? We get the whole story of Jacob and Rachel, that was his love. And we get the idea over and over again throughout Tanakh that the wife of your youth was a special passion, a special heart. We see in Shir HaShirim an entire book dedicated to love between people. So there was definitely an economic marriage and definitely a love marriage, and oftentimes they overlap. But that didn't mean that when there was a death that you didn't love again or that you didn't marry again. You would probably end up doing both. And even if you didn't feel the same passion, you'd still get married out of necessity. So it's not true to say there was no love in marriage. It's just also not true to say that it was only about love for marriage. And I think sometimes in the modern world, many people misunderstand and think that they're marrying for love, when in fact, a lot of the relationships I've seen, people are getting married for complicated reasons. It's not always just, this is the person that makes my heart go bump, 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 right? The person can make your heart go bump, 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 but if they are mean, you're probably not going to marry them. If you feel that this is somebody that it's the wrong time to get married to because economically you can't support yourself or support them, people will often wait or even not. So it's complicated. Life has always been complicated, and when it comes to marriage, it is one of the most complicated topics. Remember, this is the whole section of Talmud, Nashim, is heavily devoted to issues about marriage and families and divorce. That's a lot of material because there are a lot of issues. All right, onward. Other people that, if they are the person married to the deceased, automatically cancel the rest. And these are, again, the relationship for the woman to the living brother. His mother-in-law and his mother-in-law's mother, meaning his mother-in-law's grandmother, and his father-in-law's mother. Also, his maternal sister and his mother's sister and his wife's sister. Again, maternal sister here means that they share the same mother, but they don't share the same father.
But his mother's sister is the aunt, and you say that you can marry a nephew.
You can marry a niece, but you don't marry your parents' I'm losing mother, right? You are mother or sister. It goes one direction depending upon the gender.
Okay. Oh, I see. Only one direction. Okay. Wait, Rabbi, that you don't have the white screen, no?
I do, but every one of these 15 is a different picture.
Oh man, it's too complicated.
So I thought about trying to do that, but I would have spent more time moving every part of the family, because this family they shared the mother, this family they don't share the mother, this family they share the mother, but then she dies and now we have the other. And we're going to run through this with the commentary on the right in just a second, but I want to finish the list. His maternal sister, I did that, sorry, and his maternal brother's wife, and the wife of his brother who died before he was born, and his daughter-in-law. All these exempt their rival wives and the rival wives of their rival wives, and so on, ad infinitum, from a chalitza and from yigum. If any of them died, or made a declaration of refusal, I'll explain, or were divorced, or were found incapable of procreation, their rivals are permitted. All right, so this section here basically means if Shimon was married to a woman who couldn't marry Reuben, but she died or was divorced before Shimon died, then her status does not count any longer because she's no longer married to him. And therefore, it's not like there is a leftover prohibition for one of the other women to get married to Reuben, the living brother. And that's not just true for if there was death or divorce, but also if there was a refusal. Refusal on this is me'un, which is a case where a marriage would have been arranged for a girl when she was young by her mother or brother. And when she reached maturity, she is allowed to very easily refuse to get married to that person. To just say, nope, I don't want him. And it's like almost casual. It's a little bit stricter when it comes to a father's arrangement, but for the mother or brother, because it is rabbinically set, it is much easier for her to dissolve that. And that dissolving is called the declaration of refusal. And then, of course, if she is incapable of having children, then that means that she obviously couldn't perform the act of yibum. She wouldn't be able to have a child. That would then be able to have children in honor of the deceased. And you cannot say, however, that a man's mother-in-law or the mother of his mother-in-law or the mother of his father-in-law, that they were found incapable of procreation, or they made a declaration of refusal, because after all, they've had children being mothers, and they have clearly been married because they didn't make a declaration of refusal. Okay, I told you this was going to be a really complicated doozy.
Is there any way, Rabbi, sorry, I don't want to give you homework for this week, but any way that you can maybe find in some website, some source charts, because it's too complicated.
Okay,
to study in this way.
Yes.
Really, we need to visualize. It's very complicated. At least I need to visualize.
So the thing I can recommend is, as I brought the commentary over here to try and help. And let me see if I can make that a little bit larger. Unfortunately, Safaria doesn't let me reorganize the screen, but it gives a bit more examples of each of these to make life a little bit easier, right? So we already talked about the case of the daughter, and the daughter of his daughter and the daughter of his son, right? These cases are the same because Shimon would be married to Reuben's granddaughter and not his daughter. So of course you can't marry your granddaughter. And the daughter of his wife and the daughter of her son and the daughter of her daughter's daughter, meaning his wife's descendants, who are not his children, right? You might think, well, if they're his wife's children, aren't those his children? No, these would be his stepchildren, right? So again, if you want to imagine the family tree, this means that Shimon married the daughter of Reuben's wife, but Reuben isn't the father of that girl, right? It's Reuben's wife was married to someone else, and they had a kid, and that's the kid that Shimon married. So Reuben can't marry his wife's daughter. He can't marry his stepdaughter in order to perform the ceremony. So
because it will be very uncomfortable for the wife. The wife will be also the mother-in-law and also wife at the same time.
And the sister-in-law.
And the sister-in-law, yeah, oh my God.
Yeah, like I said, this doesn't really fit well on a family tree because most of the people have more than one job on the same tree. I told you, families are really complicated and they always have been. And it's not just that it would be uncomfortable, but it's forbidden. You're just not allowed to marry. Even if the person says, oh no, it's okay. No. You're not marrying that person. So the daughters are not his children. Even though these women are not blood relatives of his, they're still forbidden. His mother-in-law and his mother-in-law's mother, meaning his grandmother-in-law, and his father-in-law's mother, his grandmother-in-law and his grandfather-in-law's son, right? In these cases, Shimon marries Reuben's wife's mother, or Reuben's wife's maternal or paternal grandmother. Since these women are all forbidden to Reuben, right? Reuben's not allowed to marry his grandmother, or even grandmother-in-law. When Shimon dies without children, they and their rival wives are exempt, right? They don't have to do this. Also, his maternal sister. Reuben and Shimon are paternal brothers, share a father, but not the mother. Shimon marries Reuben's maternal sister, right? That is a sister to Reuben through the mother, but not through the father. This is permitted since she does not share any parents with Shimon, right? Shimon is allowed to marry Reuben's maternal sister. He's just not allowed to marry his own sister because they don't share any parents at all. Basically, that sister is like totally neutral to him. However, when Shimon dies, she, the sister, cannot have Yevamot with Reuben since he is her brother, half brother, but still brother. Therefore, she and her rival wives are exempt. And his mother's sister. Again, Reuben and Shimon are paternal brothers. Shimon marries Reuben's mother's sister and then dies. Since she, as Reuben's aunt, is prohibited to him, she and all her rival wives are exempt. I know, it is very.
So what is the logic that if you accept one, you accept everyone?
So if you exempt one, you exempt them all, is basically to say that one spoils the process because Yibum is not meant to be about picking and choosing, right? Levirate marriage is not about deciding which you want. There has to be a blanket, this is permitted or this is not. If it's permitted, it needs to be permitted for all of them. If it's not permitted, it needs to be not permitted for all of them. And that is the sort of idea behind if one is out, all of them are out. Because it has to be either yes or no as a category. Aaron, I see your hand.
Yes, Rabbi. How come you would end a person's line just because he's not permitted to one of them? Wouldn't it be better to at least have one of the rival's wives marry him? That way they could continue the line?
Okay. So welcome to one of my favorite topics, which is if you are being stringent in one place, you are being lenient in another. Right? Jewish law almost always forces us to have compromises, to have trade-offs. And in this particular case, you're right. If you are being stringent about making sure that only people that are permitted are allowed to do levirate marriage, then that means you are going to be sometimes disqualifying people that might be permitted, but you are pushing them out of the process. And that means you're being lenient on having the Levirate marriage performed. Like you said, letting the line run out. However, if you flip it, I think you'll see why the rabbis made that choice, which is to say, if you're being strict, there has to be a marriage to continue the line. You run the risk of having some woman get into the mix that would be forbidden for the other brother to marry. And the rabbis in general preferred to err on the side of not allowing the chance of a forbidden marriage to take place. They would rather let the line die out than run the risk of having that happen. The same way that, like in an American court in general, we would rather let 100 guilty people go free than put one innocent person in jail.
But how would that run the risk of an illegitimate marriage? You just take the one who can't marry out, and then all the rest are legitimate.
Well, like I said, the rabbis considered the legitimacy to be a blanket statement for the category. And that would mean that they would be performing a ceremony that was suspect. That the ceremony for the marriage was designed in their minds in reading the Torah to be the wife. Any of the wives were permitted. Therefore, by taking someone out of the mix, you have already changed what the Torah was commanding in the opinion of how the rabbis interpreted. And once you have begun to fiddle with it, well, you're not really performing the deed anymore.
So, Rabbi, are these females who are disqualified by association, we'll say, are they forbidden to marry the brother altogether, or are they only forbidden for halitza?
Well, you can't marry your brother's wives in general.
Oh,
that's like a general rule. Like if your brother dies and he's got 10 kids and his wife is now a widow, you're not allowed to marry her.
The halitza is just an exception then to that rule.
Exactly, right? So Yibum, Levirate marriage is an exception to marrying your brother's wife, and it's for that very particular purpose. And the rabbis are not super excited about giving permission for people to marry their brother's wives if it's not necessary. And again, that comes back to why they would rather err by saying, don't do anything, just in case we're accidentally permitting this to happen, when we shouldn't be. All right, we're going to stop there. We got one Mishnah down, not bad. Like I said, we get a great part of Mishnah. Mishnah 4 is going to be very exciting because those of you who have studied with me before may remember it. It's the famous discussion of how Hillel and Shammai's schools would still tolerate and work and respect each other. So hold on. I promise it gets easier, and I promise it gets a little bit more directly understandable and applicable. But do remember, if you take nothing out from today, it's that families are complicated, and trying to work out how families are going to work together has always taken a lot of time. It's not some new thing that families struggle sometimes to figure things out. We have always had to work to make our families work.
And also always keep distance with your in-laws.
You always want to stay in good relationship with all of your relatives. Exactly. All right, everyone. A reminder for those who go to Pathways to Judaism that there is no class tomorrow because of welcoming 2021. And I hope everybody has a great new year.
Same to you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, sure, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, be well,
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Rabbi.
Take care.